Let's move on to Ethiopia now, where latest reports indicate that more people are fleeing the unrest in the northern state of Tigray. The UN predicts that around 200,000 Ethiopians could pour into Sudan. Aid agencies are concerned over the impact of the arrivals. There's also the fear of disease spreading amongst the crowds, of whom nearly half are children. Sudan is already facing its own major economic and political challenges and hosting 1 million other refugees from neighboring African countries. The UN agencies are now seeking about $50 million in immediate funding, and those funds will go towards providing food and setting up new camps as all part of a broader plan to eventually secure $200 million. Well, let's bring you the very latest now on the situation in Ethiopia. We're joined live from Addis Ababa by CGTN's Girum Chala, and we're also joined by Will Carter. He is the Sudan Country Director of the Norwegian Refugee Council. Girum, let's start with you. It has been 2 weeks of fighting in Tigray. What is the latest on the battleground?
Uche, today, the Ethiopian National Defense Force and the force loyal to the Tigray regional state's leadership had heavy fighting in different locations in the northern part of the country. And as a result, we have heard from the Ethiopian National Defense Force that the towns of Aksum, Adwa, and the surrounding localities of Adigrat town have fell in the hands of the Ethiopian National Defense Forces. Now, this is called one of the most important gains made by the Defense Force since the battle started about 2 weeks ago, as you said. On the other hand, the Tigray regional state is accusing the Ethiopian National Defense Force, more particularly the Air Force itself, of hitting targets inside the Mekelle University, where there are so many students from across the country. And the source from Tigray say that several students have been injured because of the bomb attack. Now, there is no way that we can verify this from the Tigray regional state's leadership themselves directly, as there is no communication. But we tried to speak to Ethiopian authorities here, and they are saying that this is yet another false statement being made by the Tigray regional state. Now, Uche, on the other side, we should understand that the Ethiopian government is trying to form a provisional administration in the Tigray regional state. After what it says, a mission of law enforcement ends, this provisional administration should take over. Today, that leadership has given out a press statement, and they said that the first thing, their priority is going to be work of rehabilitation of those people who have been affected by that. Let's just take a listen to the executive chair of the Tigray Regional State Provisional Administration.
Due to this law enforcement operation, there are some citizens that are displaced. So the most important area will be the rehabilitation work. We'll conduct the rehabilitation activities in cooperation with, again, with federal organizations, government organizations, and humanitarian agencies. So the humanitarian activities will be one of our tasks. The other is ensuring justice and good governance is another area. As you can imagine, the Tigrayan people has been, I think, suffered a lot due to lack of justice and lack of good governance. So this interim administration will create conducive condition to change this problem.
Ethiopian authorities there talking about plans for new leadership in Tigray. But of course, as things stand at the moment, we may still be quite far from that point. Let's come to you, Will. Aid agencies are concerned that up to 200,000 refugees will arrive primarily in Sudan from Ethiopia. Now, we know, of course, that you are on the ground. What can you tell us about the refugee situation there?
Thank you. Yes, so we've just been opening and helping work in the main refugee camp in Girum state in Sudan. The country has received over 33,000 refugees in just a few days, usually between 1 and 5,000 people fleeing for their lives every day. They're coming across in quite a bad shape. Many don't know the fate of their family members and have no means to contact them. Some come across injured, others are incredibly vulnerable. And after they come through and are screened and processed, they're transported to a camp, which is only just in its beginning stages. And conditions are very, very basic at the moment, and challenges for people are extreme.
Well, certainly a very different picture from what Ethiopian authorities are seemingly painting at the moment. Girum, coming back to you, authorities are saying that those who have fled into Sudan should come back home, and they are assuring them that they will be safe. What is the reality, though? With fighting still ongoing, will they be safe?
So there are two sides of this story. First of all, we should always understand that in this warring situation, the number of people who flee from their localities, fearing for their lives and looking for shelter and security, will be increasing. As this time around, it's a climax of the war situation in the north. It's expected that the number of people who are crossing the border to Sudan might increase even in the coming few days. But according to Ethiopian authorities, Uche, they are saying that they want people to return to their localities as soon as possible, especially in the areas where they have liberated and have a stronghold at the moment. As I was saying earlier, especially in places like Adwa or Aksum, if people are evicted from those areas, according to the government, they can now return to their locations because the Ethiopian National Defense Force are in control of those areas, and they can provide food, they can provide shelter and medical services at the same time. So they are safe if they come back, is what the government is making as a call for people who are outside of the country. Now, the reality on the ground is still difficult to understand because, as we are trying to say earlier, communication is totally blacked out. The communication lines are all cut off. So the number of refugees, according to sources we're getting here and there, will increase in the next few days, and people may not even listen to the government to return to their locations. But the call still stays that the government wants people back to their shelters so it can provide security and shelter for them.
So the government calling for people to come home, but it appears that many are still trickling through the border into Sudan. Will, coming back to you, we know now there is a call for emergency funding to assist these refugees. What are the priority concerns?
Well, really, at the moment, there's very little in the camp, and we're expecting more people to come across. The humanitarian response in Sudan already was very overstretched. Over 9 million people were in need this year. And then there were floods and the COVID pandemic, and now a refugee emergency emerging. So really, its resources are stretched at the moment, and we're struggling to provide basic needs for people. What we see on the ground, they need shelter, health services. They'll need more in terms of foods and basic supplies in time.
Well, Carter, thank you so much. The country director for the Norwegian Refugee Council joining us there via Zoom. And of course, thank you very much to CGTN's Girum Chala live with us there from Addis Ababa.